Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, welcome to the Wednesday, August 21st meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. My name is Corey Meyer and all board members are in attendance, plus multiple staff members. And the meeting is called to order. Let's pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands, nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
For through the agenda, we have public movement for non-agenda items only. Staff, is there anyone online? No public in the room. We'll move on to for the consent agenda. We have approval of the 2024 Board of Supervisors budget meeting agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second by Roger. Any board or public comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we have budget discussion. Kevin Husted, Director of Finance, review Karen your finances. Tara wants to kick off first.
So as budgeting all year long, but these high-level early discussions help us so that we ensure the alignment of the board's priorities along with what staff needs and sometimes wants are. So appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Oh, I just noticed it says 2023. Okay. Today is Wednesday, August 24th. But yes, but keep going.
This one also seems to have a lot of 20.
Yeah, Kevin will address that. So as the board is aware, there will be a vacant township manager position in 2025. And there will be a transition plan that's being worked on presently that the board will consider that will have an added expense in the budget in 2025. We haven't determined an exact number of that added expense, but that will be there. The other staffing will be addressed by the chief regarding the police. And then the other numbers that we couldn't come up with yet is the Emergency Services Committee. The Finance Subcommittee is working on an apparatus replacement plan that will be slightly changed if approved moving forward, and that will go to the September 19th Emergency Services Committee for approval. And then it will come to your board meeting October 7th. So don't have exact numbers yet since that's not gone to services, but just so you're aware that those two items coming. Kevin's going to lead off in providing an overview of where we're at.
The one worksheet that has 2024 budget summary at the top. The purpose of that mainly was to highlight differences between actual 2023 results and what the projected 2023 results were as of last year. And I wanted to highlight some bigger discrepancies. We concerned with is the general fund. Our fund balance ended up being almost 7.3 million as compared to the 6 million we were anticipating. What drove that big increase was that transfer taxes were $550,000 greater than budget. Obviously, because of the housing market, that drove that. Earned income taxes were lower than budget by 325,000. Haven't received a great deal detail from Lancaster County Tax Collection Bureau, but some of that they were saying was there were some larger taxpayers that had made payments in 2022 that they were thinking were going to continue, and that didn't happen. Also in 2023, our admissions tax was 175,000 greater than budget. That was all driven by Dutch Wonderland. Our collections for the year were the highest they've ever been for Dutch Wonderland. Caused that. Also, interest income, because of the higher interest rates, that was $300,000 over budget. Police services revenue from Upper Lake Hawk was lower than budget by 130,000. That's mainly because the percentage of calls, number of calls in Upper Lake Hawk is down compared to what it had been in previous years. Also, there was a transfer from the ARPA funds to the general fund in the amount of 990,000, which wasn't budgeted.
A question about, are we allowed to interrupt any?
Yeah, please, go.
So is there a base to what the other Lampeter pays us for police services, or is it fluctuating like this?
It fluctuates. It's basically a percentage of our actual costs.
But
It's been pretty consistently been a couple points.
Yeah, it's always, the percentage of calls has always been about 20%. But now, I was gonna say in 23, it was like 17 or 18%.
we're carrying the underlying cost all the time. Could we look at could we explore a different funding process in the future?
I'm not sure when the contract runs out or.
It doesn't, it just renews and renews, so we'd have to negotiate with Upper Lake Hawk to change that. Now, all the costs are included in the formulas. There aren't any costs that are excluded in that process.
And now part of that would be more of a chief question. Did their call volume drop, or would their call volume, was it different relative to our call volume these last year? So it's one of their call volume may be steady, but ours may have gone up, or did both drop or one drop more?
Their call volume dropped.
Which would have then also decreased our costs as well.
So on our side, so the variable costs of overtime and things like that, because their call volume went down, theoretically, our overtime and some of those costs, internal costs should have gone down.
Yeah, I mean, you always have someone staffed there, right? So it's like, even if they're not getting a call, they're sitting there. And so but you're talking about big numbers here, right? So it's, I mean, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, we had a major crime there where there were a ton of expenses going there. And my assumption is, I don't know if that counts as one call or if that counts as, the Amish woman that was murdered.
Linda Solskjaer.
Yeah, Linda Solskjaer's, you know, I mean, I think over time it works its way out or works itself out, but, yeah, I mean, there is always an officer there in Upper Lake. So if they're not getting calls, you know, they're not paying for that person because there's no calls, right?
Yes, we try and keep an officer in Upper Lake Township at all times. There are times when there is nobody there, but they would be few and far in.
Just food for thought. I don't want to get in.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
The other fund that had a significant change was Fund 8, which is the sewer fund. The expenses were lower than what we were anticipating, mainly because the treatment costs from the city, the timing of the bills that we received, and also their process of making changes as a result of their audit are hitting this year as opposed to last year. So that's why the costs are so much lower. Also in the Fund 32, the Parkland Reserve Fund, the revenues are higher because Greenfield North had a and the end of the year that we were anticipating. Another fund is this sewer authority. The expenses are significantly lower, and that's because we always anticipate our budget, the entire amount that the city is projecting that they will spend on projects, and they almost never complete them or start work on them when they say they're going to, but we budget that full amount regardless of knowing that they'll never meet that. But that caused the construction costs to be $4.8 million lower than what we were anticipating. Also within the sewer authority, the stormwater fund, the expenses were significantly less because the pollution reduction projects were lower than budget. Projects weren't ready. In beginning in 24.
Primarily, that's the I2 capital farm projects that are to be financed through stormwater.
And as far as so far in 2024, I believe that the total revenue for the general fund and the total expenses for the general fund will end up being lower than budget. But I'm still anticipating that the projected deficit will be approximately what we anticipated.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. So I'm looking at the general fund, 2024 proposed revenues, 13 million. Is that based on actuals through July? Is that the original number or is that?
Yeah, basically what I did under actual results line, I just took the budgeted revenues and budgeted expenditures and put them on that line.
Okay, so at the beginning in 2023, we thought we have 13.1 million in proposed revenues. That's what's in there. There's no bearing on what actually happened so far this year. Okay. And based on the actuals that you've seen so far this year, you feel that revenues are going to be better than that, or you don't have a
lower
statement?
than that.
Lower than that, lower than 13.1.
Right, and
And expenses will also, but expenses will also be less than 14.8.
right,
Okay.
but I,
Same, but a similar gap or,
yeah, probably,
Okay.
not certain, but seems that way. And say part of that is that our transfer taxes going to be significantly less than what we budgeted. And I think maybe, I guess you call it recency bias when you budget, you know, the significant revenues that we received in 23, thinking maybe that might continue, but.
Yeah, right. I mean, if there's a $36 million, $40 million transaction, it's not going to happen again. You know, right?
Right.
Unless there's a different property that out there that, you know, buys and sells. So, okay.
And then also there was shared with the board, like the projections using a 1% deficit tax revenue increase. We also agreed with that. Under 2026, we would still be under the 18% budget.
Assumptions?
Yeah. Deficits are driven mainly personnel costs, approximately 70% of budget. So the increased staffing that we've had last couple of years. And then also the police staffing for administrative side, and also the police are driving higher costs. Also, the real estate tax base, the assessed values, the 10 years prior to the countywide reassessment, the total increase in the real estate tax base was only 5%. So that's an average of like 0.5% a year. And then since the countywide reassessment, tax base is almost exactly the same now as it was then. So that's from 2024, you know, from 2018 to 2024, there's been no increase in tax base. So that's, and while collections are pretty consistent every year, it's, our tax base isn't growing, so our revenues aren't growing as you would expect, but given some, you know, big projects in the township, you know, we've had some big appeals where we've lost tax base.
Question. So the file you sent that has the July 2024 income statement is labeled through April.
Yeah, that should be.
It should be the July, so is it the July income statement or that was wrong?
Right, I believe so.
How much revenue? What's the total revenue on that? It was, well, that'd be awesome. That's for the general.
I mean, it's more than the last one we had this in April,
Yeah.
but not by. So I was. You sure it's April?
It is. the
So that's the budget performance report. It should be July.
Yep, that's, yeah, it's July's.
So even though we're currently, as of July, currently ahead by about $1 million, I think we're gonna end up negative by the end of the year.
Real estate tax collection
Yeah,
really doesn't continue.
95% of that, yeah.
Right. Obviously, we still have 5 months of payroll expenses, so yes, it'll likely it will end up being a negative.
Kevin, do we keep a list of new properties that go on the tax rolls versus the appeals that lost, I mean, internally?
Not typically now.
They're just factors that we have to. The result of the numbers, yeah. Right?
Right.
So if my recollection tells me right, Rockville was a huge impact.
So. Wow, that's good. $14 million.
Yeah, yeah.
What year was that hit? Before COVID.
I think there was a deal that was before COVID,
Yeah,
but then I think
that's what I.
the bigger reduction was after.
Yeah, prior owner had appealed and got a reduction, and then the new owner appealed and got another reduction.
So when will that reassessment happen? When will that tax base go back up? Like how quickly after occupancy?
That takes quite a while.
Yeah, the assessment office is not Johnny on the spot with this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're talking years, I mean, probably.
Even if it did, it would go into the TIF fund.
Now, because the tip value was, I forget how much.
Oh, right, the TIF value was higher.
Yeah.
So now we got, yeah.
Yeah, so all of, we would.
Are there any other properties that went through this process that are not in the TIF area that high, any others?
I mean, it's been a while within the timeframe that Kevin talked about prior to the reassessment, but Hack, went from being taxable to being completely non-taxable. So that was a pretty big hit. The Wyndham, what was the host, they had a pretty significant drop. That's been a while ago as well, but it hasn't come back up either.
Right.
Part of that also is the weight on. So either something new built or significant improvements that increases, or we wait for the county to at some point do a reassessment whenever they feel like it. Usually isn't quickly.
Yeah.
One example would be the Locust Grove School, which was not a tax. Now it will become one. So the time frame that happens is Clark like that. I know, I just, like, is that all up to the assessment office after they get record of the change of ownership, so forth?
We can send letters in there and, ask them to move up the list, but, it doesn't.
Small properties, I mean, My house gets moved up pretty quick if I add something.
Exactly.
Big properties take a while for some reason.
That's really the point. I mean,
Other questions for Kevin?
I just have a question. Because GA Spotlight or whatever. Credit cards that are carried by our employees. How many of them have their actual names on?
None.
None. 'Cause I just saw in Center County, they're missing 532,000. We had to ask the question, because of my reading over the last 2 weeks. And there's another one up in Du Bois, they don't know where that money's going to, so I'm not criticizing, I just, for clarification, want to make sure that credit cards are handled very carefully at this township, and it looks like they are, because I did see a line involves credit cards.
So presently, there's one card that lives in the building.
Okay.
Kevin, can you sum up your main concern and or strength? You have a comment that you would say in general?
Obviously, the concern is just, now we're starting to reach the point where we're going to fall below the budget.
So deficit spending.
Right.
Taking away from the general fund balance.
Right. Without, significant increases in revenue streams, the real estate tax base is what it is, and our employment base, we can't change that to increase the earned income tax. Yeah, that would be a concern of the deficit spending. The point that how much you have control over.
Okay. I mean, I see those same trends. We met with the auditors as well, and I urge you to take a look at that audit report. I mean, the big picture, the sort of what I see in the financials here, which is what we've seen in a while, is our only lever without changing policy is to adjust our real estate tax rate, or we can cut costs. Combination of those two. Our fixed costs that are things usually police, pensions, health insurance, things that people cost. Those are the ones that are going to be growing at a steady rate faster than the rate of the value of the properties. So we're going to have to be incrementally rate, which look at any school district, they're doing that. It's a small property tax increase every year. Usually townships like to wait a while, do a bigger one, and rely either on a development tide that rises. So if you're a Manheim Township and you just keep developing until you run out of land, you can ride that wave for a while, but the wave's going to eventually crash. And then you have other folks, you can increase your population by adding housing, which brings in more, both, we have plenty of employers. We don't have this, so having more folks who live here, who work here would help drive our EITC piece where we have more commuters. Now might be worth refreshing up everything. So you pay your tax where you work, less your home tax rate is higher, and then you also pay that difference, is my understanding. So anyway, those are the levers we can have, is we either aggressively attract infill and redevelopment, add more housing, or chop up stuff, farmland, which I don't think we want to do. It's a matter of, all right, we need to keep raising our revenues and keeping our costs under control as best we can. But they are going to be rising at a faster rate than we can raise the revenue through growth.
And those two revenue growth measures add up to more costs too, increased costs. as Chief will explain, as population goes up, as things that have to be to provide government services to them. I can't say it went right, but
But usually you get economies of scale, so it's one where relative cost per capita in East Lampeter is going to be lower than the relative cost in Upper Lake. So as you grow, your public services don't grow at the same rate. You actually achieve some economies of scale there.
Other comments? Kevin, anything to add?
I also did a quick calculation using the projection where we assumed a 3% increase in real estate taxes or tax revenue. That in order to hit budget of 18% of 2027, it would require an additional $350,000 revenue in 25, 26, and 27. And the 350,000 is approximately a 10% increase in millage rate
Each year or?
each year.
Wow.
In
So
order
10,
to-
10, 10 to hit
In
2027.
order to allow us to still be above, at or above the 18%. So in addition to a 3%, it would be another 10% each year.
So it's really 13% around.
Yeah. For 3 years.
One of the challenges, if you look at our neighboring municipalities, look at like the percentage of the revenue they get of their budget from real estate taxes is much higher. So their average, their median property value is higher. So a smaller percentage increase gets them a lot more revenue, whereas our real estate taxes, like maybe a third of our budgeted revenues. So if we just look at sort of police, so big picture, the police cost is over half our budget, and is one of the drivers of cost. But our revenue stream that we have any control over is a third of our revenue. So it has to,
Yeah.
so if one goes up by 3%, the other one has to go up by 9%.
Looking at a couple years ago or so, just the millage rate for Lancaster County municipalities. We were definitely one of the lower ones. Definitely not as low as some of the more rural municipalities. Their rates were really low.
Places without a police force. Or a lot of standards.
Thank you for that analysis. Chief Derby, tell us the good news now. You bad or wrong?
Feel like the elephant in the room.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, biggest expense, right?
Well, the biggest thing, as you guys already know, with the police department personnel. We have 40 sworn officers currently. One of those sworn is in the academy. And of those 40, we have a 7th officer joining the drop, probably about the end of September. He's on the 45-day wait. So that means come 2027, we will have 7 officers leaving between March and October 1st, 2027. Now, one of those 7 is likely to leave before 2027. I'm 90% sure Officer Redden will leave before his 3 years is up. And based on that, and in order to stay ahead of the shortage of people wanting to go into law enforcement, I would recommend that we look at hiring 4 people of those 7 and 2025. The timeline of that, we currently have a list of, we had 4, but one accepted the job somewhere else as of yesterday. So we have a list of 3. Of those 3, one already has Act 120, so they would be able to come on board and start right away. So if we get through our process here, we would have one that could come on board in 2024. The other 2 would need to go into the academy. That's a 6-month wait to get them through the academy. And then you have to figure another 3 to 4 months of coach pupil or field training. So the realization until we see them on the street is likely November of 2025. If we extend deployment and it's accepted in 2024, that would be the earliest because the next police academy is going to start in January. So we also have the consortium list, which just released 2 weeks ago. We have a pending interview date coming up. Of that list, which was almost 50, there's 28 applicants on that list who scored better than an 80%, which we could delve into and see if we can get a complimentary list out of that 28 to help us get to this number 4 between now and the end of 2025, provided you approve that. That's the biggest dollar, the dollar draw on the budget for the police department. The other items, we purchase cars regularly every year. This year would have been a year where I would have asked for 5 cars, but due to the fact that we found some leftover brand new 2023 Dodge Chargers out in Indiana, and we had some money left over in our vehicle budget this year, we were able to buy 2. So I'm asking for 3. The round number I provided there was 200,000. The more accurate number is likely 216, give or take, with change until those cars are upfitted and ready to hit the street. Beyond that, we would have police academy attendance costs. We get reimbursed 75% of police academy from the state, and we get reimbursed 45% of salary provided the applicant passes the academy. So some of that money would come back to us. With Joe Edgel's retirement, we were down to 1 polygraph technician. So I was asking for money to send another detective to calligraphy school. That's an expensive school. It's also a lengthy school. It's 5 months long. So it's a big expense for training, and it's a big expense for overnight expenses because they're never around our area here. They can commute usually out of state. And then the larger training expense there was for to send a lieutenant to Northwestern University's Police Staff and Command School. That's what was in Hershey in 2025. It's not given in Hershey every year. And I can't guarantee that it'll be given in Hershey in 2025, but I was going to ask if the money could be there in the event that it was. Our Class A uniform shirts are heather gray. We've experienced an issue that I've never experienced before, where every manufacturer is not making this exact color anymore. About a year and a half ago, we bought a different shirt from the original ones that we purchased when we got the new uniform several years ago. And the color was close enough to call it good, that we could stand near each other and it's not going to be too far. But I can't say that in the Class A uniform, which we don't wear that frequently, but we would have some guys in heather gray, and then I would have some other kind of gray, but it would be definitely noticeable. And it would, to get everybody to be in the same shirt, it would be 45 shirts at approximately. Easy. I haven't picked a shirt out yet, but that's what that money is being asked for. Also carrying the 40 or 40 plus officers, we have used all of the lockers in the men's locker room. I think we have 1 or free right now at the moment. And we built the building with the opportunity to expand lockers in the men's locker room. So I was asking for $6,500 to buy it's either 10 or 12 additional metal lockers. They are the same dimensions of the plastic ones we have, but the manufacturer who made our plastic ones no longer makes that size anymore. So this is the next best thing, which gave us the same footprint and gave each person the same amount of locker space. They would come assembled and talk to Charlie, and we would be able to use some help from Public Works over the winter months to assemble these lockers and create the base that they would go on in the locker room, save money there. But that would be a project for us that I was asking for. Cody Pathfinder, we budgeted for this year, but we keep getting pushed back for the launch on that. And we've been told now that we could potentially be launched in January of next year, but it wouldn't include all the modules that we currently use in Cody. And I've asked the folks at Cody to just continue to put us off until the modules are available. They're telling me it'll be another maybe 2 months. Should be in the first quarter of 2025 that we would have all that. And the purpose for that is I just think it's going to be a lot easier to train multiple people one time than to bring them back in and train them 2 or 3 times for different aspects of how to use this records management, changes in this records management system. So the 44,000 there is a carryover from 1 year to the next. And then that's a 3-year payment process. From 44 goes down to 36.5 for year 2 and something down closer to $30,000 for year 3. We are also planning to move our connection with Caliber, which we currently connect to Caliber through Lancaster City, and we pay them, I believe, $2,500 for that connection annually. They have gotten rid of their more accomplished IT people in there, and maintaining that connection is becoming more of a challenge for us. So through my conversations I had with Jeff, who runs our IT, he recommended that we look at getting something cloud-based, and the $5,000 cover that connectivity cloud-based going forward.
What does Caliber do? What's that software do?
Boy, I've got a blank.
It's all right. I know what Cody is, but
Yeah, Cody's our records management.
yeah.
Trax is our connection for citations through the state. Caliber is our connection through Clean. So we would be assessing rap sheets and priors and that type of stuff.
Got it. Okay.
That's everything there.
Questions from the board?
I want to say again and reiterate my position and just reaffirm what I told you in the past was if we could run a little fat, a little heavy because of the shortage of people. It's still the plan. I throwing out this number 44, this is a big swallow. I get that. But the goal is then as we get forward a couple of years and hopefully get over this hump of shortage of people that want to get in this field, that we can settle back down to a 40-man agency. Our calls for service, while they fluctuate a little bit, have not climbed so significantly to warrant asking for another officer on each platoon to handle the workload yet. So we're still hovering at that 22,000 calls for service a year. Until that number were to change and start going up, I think that we could settle back down. Otherwise, we run short, which we can run short, but then we're left chasing our tail when we do have somebody retire and can be short-staffed.
Chief, what is that formula basically in just straight language, number of calls when you over time and you decide, hey, we're going to need to really get another officer?
I don't know, I haven't really thought of it in terms of a mathematical formula, Mike, but I would think that we're running 20,000. I think that we would need to be somewhere in the 25,000 calls per year range in order to bring up this conversation of adding people.
It's not population really that you factor.
Population
Would have to. Yeah,
but that wouldn't be the sole reason to drive police calls. And, you know, of course, we have complications to population when we have 1 million plus visitors come through every year. And then, of course, we have transient and homeless population that comes up and comes down winter to summer, winter, things of that nature.
And there's a minimum number you need to have on the street at a certain time, right? So having a number in a platoon.
Right. Our past practice is 6-man platoons and working with minimally 4.
Right.
Now that's no longer in the contractual language, and the purpose of that was if somebody were to get sick, for example, in the middle of a night shift and go home at 3 o'clock, well, that's a very slow part of the day. So
You're not going to bring it.
you don't need to bring somebody in for 3 or 4 hours to
Yeah.
cover that
Yeah.
just because it says so in the contract. But realistically, at just about any other time of the day, I'm not comfortable having less than 4 people on the street.
So just to reaffirm the numbers, you said we have 7 that will be currently on the drop sheet. Right?
Yes, there will be, in a couple more days, there will be 7 in the drop, yes.
And so we have 4, now 3 on the list that we could actually hire.
Correct. And when they're not background finished yet, but yes, actually there could be 3 there.
Check the backgrounds, they're ready to come in, so. And so basically at the end of 2027, you're looking at what, 43 full-time?
Yeah.
If everyone stays?
Yeah. Oh, drop. You're talking about the drop. Sorry. Go.
Okay, so if we have 40 and we're going to add 4 and go up to 44 and then have those 7 come off, we would come down under 40 again, but then we would hire their replacements closer to 2027. It doesn't need to be done in 2025. If we are fortunate enough to get 4 qualified candidates and you gentlemen are in agreement to take them on, then we go up to 44 and then talk about 2026 if we're going to hire any more to be prepared for the 7 that are going to vacate in 2027. But then that number will come back down.
So you're comfortable with those numbers, how that's going to stream out?
I am. I don't think we need to hire 7 in 2025, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. The continuum of people leaving and hiring, you're comfortable with that looking into for 2027?
Yes, we are definitely at a place where we are going to see people leaving on a fairly annual basis, I believe.
And the pool of candidates available that come in and whatever resources we're using to look at potential candidates, are those candidates getting better? Are they staying the same?
I would say the same percentage of them have college education as they have had for the past few years. I would say that the percentage of them that have the academy already under their belt is going down. We would go back 3 years or more, we would have had a broader selection of applicants that already put themselves through the academy looking for jobs. Now that number is completely flip-flopped. It's a much smaller number now. So it's just not what it used to be. I mean, we had, I think the whole county had about 40 last year, which resulted in less than 20 for a list. This year they had 50, which resulted in like 36 for a list that passed with a 70. I had said 28 earlier, they passed with an 80. So I mean, it's a little better than last year, but it's not a huge turnaround. But we'll take the couple we get, right? So
Chief, did you say of the 4 applicants, we just lost one?
we did, yes, she took a job with Millersville University. The whole landscape of getting somebody in is, it's a dog eat dog world.
Yeah.
There used to be a handshake deal pretty much between chiefs that they wouldn't hire somebody if they're already in another chief's process. That's all gone by the wayside because we're doing well, East Lampeter Township in terms of staffing. There's other places in the county that are far worse off than we are. There's a handshake deal on, if you can get somebody, you get them. And I'm not upset about it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think what Chief is also saying is that we haven't lowered our standards in terms of bringing people in, and we don't plan to do that. And trying to plan out the way we see these departures happening. If we go to 42 or 43 and 25, it might be 41 or 42 and 26, and then it depends. Other stuff happens too, it's not a completely predictable thing. So we're trying to be prepared and ultimately we understand the complement is 40 and we're trying to make sure that when we get through this period of departures that we end up with 40. But we need to get a little heavier first before we can feel comfortable with that.
I'd like to get a sense from the board of where they're feeling on the 44 number, direction. Is that, as Mia said, staffing is the highest expense for the organization, especially the police. So.
Well, I'm comfortable with it because I just think it's very difficult, like many industries, but it's just very difficult to find quality people. You got to stay ahead of it and expect that you're going to lose. Obviously, the retirement issue is a real one.
Yeah, and then you look at Lancaster Township starting up from scratch. We're not the only ones trying to hire. Let's say we're the one we're in a really good place relative to what I see other departments doing. I'd like to maintain that. So on.
Same here. I mean, we township through Chief Zerby, Bowman, Churchill, we run a very professional police force here, and I don't think we utilize anything less than that. So, projecting needs accurately is your job, and I think we should respond with your recommendations.
Yeah, let's, any other questions? You need any direction on anything else or feel good? We approved the gray shirt as well. Although those are expensive. Charlie Thomas.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
You can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, you broke up. Sound like you said it was good there.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Yeah. To start off, no new employees in the Public Works Department for this year or for 2025. Got a great group of guys there for a good staff. Some of the big ticket items we're looking at, the engineering is just about complete for the Lafayette Park Pavilion. The site work, which would bring the utilities, the concrete pad up to the area, is looking at 107,000. I'm waiting on the number for the structure yet. I wouldn't even want to put a guess to it. Just not a real good idea for that one. Moving on to paving. I'm going to be jumping around unless you want me to try to match them. Pavings of the roadways. We've got a big list off of our robotics program that we installed a few years ago. And this could be dwindled down, but we're looking close to $400,000 in paving. That would cover ADA ramps also, either upgrading or installing for future sidewalks. The backhoe, we felt we didn't need to replace it for the next couple of years. The good maintenance program we got going on. However, the transmission is starting to go bad, and we're looking at a $20,000 investment for that. If we would jump into a new backhoe, we're getting into new emissions testing, which is taking these backhoe prices through the roof. Tree removal, we're to a point where we did a year of it, and I think our budget was 15,000 last year. Getting estimates, we wanted to try to jack that up to 22,000 due to the area that we're considering going into. 15,000, we'd be short of completing that area. We'd have to go back in again the following year.
Where is trees?
Down around the Susan Avenue area.
Okay.
The interceptor's back through there.
Yeah.
Stauffer Run, we've got an inspection coming up. We're waiting on a number. The gentleman does our EPA storage tank, underground storage tank inspection, said 2025, 26. They're going to start making people move them things out of the ground, especially being right next to Stauffer Run. Having trouble getting a number from him at this point, but there are options. UGI's installing a line out there. We could go gas, but we'd have to hook that up within a year. Above ground storage tank, we could build a platform so we're up out of the floodplain. So there's options there. I just don't have a number to give you. There's a couple knife valves in Stauffer Run. I think they were original. That's so we can isolate certain lines to clean out, pump out. You're looking at between $20,000 and $30,000 for those. Then we jump down to the roof at Knowles Mill. That would be removing I call it an office trailer on top of the silos, the catwalk, and also installing a new roof. There's a couple options. You're talking to do that roof and remove all those items off of the roof between $230,000 and $275,000, depending on the material you would use. One would be shingles and one would be a metal roof. The cupola vents at Flory Park, I guess baseball players got pretty good arms. They're denting all the vents up there. We like to go with the heavy material. And we also installed cameras in that cupola area. So there'll be more protection for that. About 15,000 for that. The Gibbons Park development, as you know, we do have a design. Cost estimate for construction, you're looking at about $607,000. That would be the parking lot, the boat ramps, the trails, the bridge over Mill Creek, etc. Our waste oil burner out in the shop is probably about 15 years old already. To replace the waste oil tank that's underneath of it is fine. But the firebox itself, it's about a $15,000 purchase. That saved us a lot of money in UGI gas costs when we installed them. We did upgrade our EPA license to keep accepting waste oil and cooking oil to keep burning in the shop to keep the costs down. We wanted the salt sheds, well, they're original, but the siding on it, I think it was T111. That's starting to bow and crack. We wanted to try to put siding on that to match the new pole barn. Cost estimate to come. The Willow Road box culvert. This is, I'm going to call it a joint project between the township, High, and Elsa for their stormwater. At this point, the engineering is in progress. We do have close to a final design. We're about ready to sit down with High to talk to them about contributions. We're looking at about $481,000 construction cost. There was money's already set aside for the design. This will be the construction now, $481,000. And Highs is involved because of the trail around Greenfield North. They want to extend it out. That way their trail can continue Willow Road to Greenfield Road to Ben Franklin Boulevard. Did look into the speed education signs that the police department purchased a few years ago to help get them out of different places in the township. Now we just got to keep them in one area. If we would have another set, would help. And you're looking at about $12,000 purchase. We're also have more items to scan in the public works side of it. Land development plans, records and stuff. I think zoning is complete. I wanted to see if we could try to finish up our documents with that 20,000 if allowed. There was a, go ahead.
Number 9, I think you jumped over. Tractor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah, our 4110 tractor is, probably 23 years old. And we did find some metal shavings in the transmission oil the last time they changed it. You're looking about a $70,000 purchase, but that includes all the attachments with it, which would be a rear mower, bucket, a broom for the front, a snow blower to help with the walking trails around the complex and also at our pump stations. But yeah, like I said, that thing, it's got to be, well, it was here when I got hired and I'm here 20, so it's got to be about 23 years old.
And just as an example, that price is 70,000. We would pay to purchase it if we sold the old tractor. First, that money would. Yeah.
That is correct. And I was going to let you know, like some of the cost savings, there was a cost savings sheet that I was working on. I'm not sure if that made it to the board, but there is.
We can give the cost sheet to the board at this point.
Okay, because it's not complete. To let you know, you gave us the permission to purchase 2 Skag mowers last year at $30,000. We put our 2 Skag mowers on Municibid and putting them together. Our actual cost was $28,000, but we ended up getting close to $16,000 for the 2 mowers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it's the same for police cars too, right? We replace police cars, we put them on municipal, sell them.
Correct. Yeah. Any piece of equipment that I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Keep going.
Yeah. And anything we sell in the public works department, we try to put it right on municipal, which we found instead of trade-in value. I think with the mowers, they wanted to give us $2,500 and we were getting over $7,000 a piece or $8,000 for those Skag mowers. So sending it to that program really worked out well. At this point, there is no real equipment purchase other than the 4110 tractor. We have been doing some cost savings doing our own mechanical work. We actually have 2 employees that have diesel mechanic background. So I'm not going to go through the whole list, but some of the dump trucks and stuff we worked on, we get cost of us purchasing the parts. We supply the labor. We're at probably close to $5,000 in savings instead of sending it out to get it worked on, which is a big help. Then our guys are familiar with what's going on. They can report back to their supervisors of what happened, what they think happened, and it's not just send it out, get it fixed, and it's working again.
Great.
Charlie, the Little Road culvert design, if that goes into the 2025 budget, will that be completed in 2025?
Oh, I don't know if I got a schedule on completion.
Just to be clear, the design is almost done.
Okay,
So we'd be doing construction.
so we'd have 18 months.
And assuming everything goes smoothly with our discussions with High, I don't see why it couldn't be built next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get out to bid late winter. One of the biggest things we'll probably be waiting on is the DEP permit, but it is a smaller permit since we're not encroaching on the wetlands. We're feeling that should go smoothly. I reached out to the engineer before I left the other day, and he didn't have any word on any questions coming back yet. I don't know if it came back to our office for signature yet or not. Tara didn't? Okay. Okay.
The
Mhm.
person in terms of cost savings this year as a directive from the board in the approval of the 24 budget. At present, including cost savings with the full barn, they're at 66,000 in that department.
So that includes like the diesel work that Charlie just, yep. Good.
Only other thing to say about
Go ahead.
that information related to Gibbons Park. The park board was discussing sort of their thoughts on priorities, and Gibbons Park definitely rose to the top from their perspective. I do think that development project could likely be broken into phases if you wanted to look at it that way. You could sort of do the west side of the creek without the bridge, or with the bridge, but there'd be no place to go, and then do the bridge and the east side as a second phase. So if you want to look at it that way, we could break up those numbers to figure that out for you.
And we did apply for funding for that through the Precision Boat Commission last year in 2023. We were denied that money, but that came to about 200,000.
Would have been.
Would have been 200,000.
So the 607 is for the full project. And Terry, you saying what we applied for was that just for the west side of it? Okay, so the west side of the project, not 200.
The bridge.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my sense on that, I mean, it's, to me, phase it, try to spread those expenses over, at least a couple of years. I think that makes sense. I don't see anything in this list that we can hold off on, frankly. Paving the roadways, you're gonna have to do that work at some point. Like I said, it's coming from the Highway 8 fund. The culvert, of course, it's a partnership with High. Yeah, I would suggest, I would recommend phasing out the Gibbons Park project.
Can we get a sense, we're just going to talk about this now, not necessarily later. Why did they put Gibbons at a top priority? Based on the other things that we're doing, parks.
Yeah, I think just in looking at, what was recommended in the park and recreation plan, that was the facility that they thought ought to get priority.
I mean, Lafayette's getting updates essentially next year already.
Yeah.
Community's in good shape.
The trail project that we're doing, which isn't really reflected here, but is funded with county grant funds, will create the trail through Flory Park out to Oakview, connecting up into Lincoln Highway. So there's work being done there as well. So that kind of leaves Gibbons as the remaining.
When was Gibbons first proposed?
We purchased that property in 2015, 2013.
I think it was 2015.
15.
Yeah.
All the property down there.
Yeah, about 15 acres. And then the mill property, became available and we acquired that. 20. So they're adjacent to each other. So altogether, it's about 16 acres. And we've done, we did the cooperative effort to do the stream bank work on Mill Creek through there. And we've done, a couple of smaller things, the temporary parking at the existing entrance that we have now. So we haven't, other than we applied for funding through Fish and Boat in an effort to try to get that first phase of improvements done. So, the first phase of improvements would kind of be that entrance off of Old Pike, 35 parking spaces, flagpole and walking trail out on that western side of Mill Creek.
And the intent of purchasing that was additional recreation.
Yes.
There was another reason, really, about development or something like that, to say, we don't really have something in that corner of the township.
It's all floodplain.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really have any development
Makes
potential.
sense, right.
And yes, the previous park and recreation plan recommended having some sort of recreation facility more in that portion of the township. So that definitely was the intent. We were also going to incorporate, the opportunity to have it's the right term for it, for the fire company to go down and be able to draw from the creek at that location.
Draft site. A
Thank you.
draft site.
So that would be incorporated in that first phase as well, so that they'd have that opportunity.
Other comments, questions, thoughts on Charlie's Public Works?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is I started looking at future stuff, like the chief's looking at employees. I'm not looking at employees. I'm looking at equipment. I'm going to have probably a sweeper replacement in 26 or 27. We're going to have all these trails done, and they're all going to be needing this special vacuum to keep them clean with the pervious paving going in. Right now, rough guesstimate, 152,000 to 250,000, all depends the size and what it's capable of doing. So looking at a couple years before that. Also, in 2028, our big gap vax is going to be 20 years old already. And you're looking probably $750,000 to $800,000 for that. And talking with Kevin, I think we lease purchased that the last time. And I'm also going to have our sign truck and another pickup truck in 2027. They're both going to be 20 years old. They're still running. Like I always talk about, the maintenance program's good, but it's starting to nickel and dime. But at this point, we don't see any reason to change them now. But probably in a few years, we're going to be looking at that. Just as a heads up.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions, comments? Direction? Also on the Gibbons Park development, I mean, we also have the option to say, you know what, let's not do anything as well, right? We can do the full recommendation. We could parse it out to phases, or we could say, you know what, let's hold off another year or more.
I'll say hold off another year. Let's get the Willow Road culvert design and that whole project done. 2025.
Other thoughts?
More people directly on that site than presently will travel to Gibbons Road. Phase it or push it off.
Is our 18% reserve percentage by ordinance?
No, it's policy with the board.
Policy board.
The only other thing I'd say about the park improvements would be that and we did get a sizable park fee last year, which was unexpected. So we could look at what's in the that fund, so it wouldn't affect the general fund in the same way. Give you some information on that. If we get, Rockvale with 128 units that are been approved, there's going to have to be a fee related to that. There's more fees coming from Greenfield North eventually. So maybe we should look at it through that fund.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. Yeah, I mean, any way we can use those designated funds for those purposes and keep it out of the general, not use the general fund, I'd be for it. I'd be more for it. Yeah, I thought. So maybe bring back some more information on the
Well, the other two that are very large, and this may be, you'll tell me in a second why it is. I realize that these things are expensive, but the sewer fund and the sewer authority funds are very large. Can we just put some perspective on that? Do they have to be that large? Are we anticipating? I realize there's a lot of things that need to be addressed, but.
When you say large, help me understand.
Well, sewer fund is revenues that are, getting 24 proposed. Sewer fund is at 4.57.
A lot of money, but there's a lot of expenses.
Yeah, maybe I can speak to the authority a little easier. The authority and essentially the financing authority. So their job is to finance the capital projects that need to be done on our system. And most of what's done there is all the joint projects that are done among the partners at the sewage treatment plant and the shared facilities that we have with the city of Lancaster. So I understand your interest in it, but that doesn't affect your general fund at all. The responsibility of the township for those projects basically is through the sewer fund. So all of the debt service that the authority takes on has to be paid by the rate customers, which all pay through the sewer fund. So the rate that's charged and the amount of revenue that you need in order to cover the authority's capital projects also has to come through the sewer fund. And it's budgeted there as debt service.
And unfortunately, the sewer fund is running at a deficit projected, based on these two projections, pretty substantially in the next five years or so.
One of the last sewer authority meetings to look at updating our rates. Especially given the large costs we have coming down the pike, literally, and from the city.
Yeah, there are a couple aspects to that. What the sewer authority just authorized at their last meeting was to look at the charge for the tapping and connection fee. We did go through a process mostly last year, looking at the actual quarterly rate structure. That didn't bear any fruit for a variety of reasons, but we could take a look at that again.
Bearing fruit means that
Doesn't change.
Yeah, we just didn't get to the end of the process to the point where, at least speaking for myself, we could make a recommendation to the board to make a change in the structure. That was
So the nature of the major projects are inspection of existing sewers. They run cameras. They decide if they're collapsing, if there's pipe to be replaced, what maybe new has to go in via some development. Is that generally what we're talking about?
the major capital projects no, they're mostly down at the sewage treatment plant. So we own about 14% own. I'm going to say own for lack of a better term, but we own about 14 point some percent of the capacity in that treatment facility. So whenever they're doing improvements down there to either deal with quality of the effluent that's created or the amount of effluent that can be processed through the plant, we contribute about 14% of the overall cost for those improvements. And they're looking at improvements in the next 7 years of hundreds of millions of dollars. So you can expect that rates here are gonna have to go up rather dramatically because the quality, it's called nutrient capacity. So the amount of flow that they can process right now and achieve the results of the effluent going out is such that it's not the same as what they call the hydraulic capacity, which is just the amount of water that can go through the system. So our nutrient capacity is about 1 million gallons less per day than our hydraulic capacity. So they're looking at projects that'll increase the nutrient capacity to get back up to the same as the hydraulic capacity. So looking at large dramatic capital improvements down
Don't swim in the creek here.
And they decide what to do, and then we get the bills.
Well,
So we have 14% voting rights in that process.
more or less, you know,
Probably less.
and we meet with them on a quarterly basis among all the partners, you know, the city, suburban Lancaster, LASA, and Upper Lake Cock are all contributors. And we do meet with them on a quarterly basis to basically have that communication so that we know what's coming.
Okay.
You know, I'll share with you, you know, when I first got here, the way it worked was we'd get a bill in the mail from the city saying, you owe us $3.7 million and we need it in 30 days. And so we worked a long time to get to a point where now at least we have ongoing communication and we know what's coming well in advance. Still costs a lot of money, you know, that doesn't change, but at least we're better able to prepare for it.
Thank you. So I'm definitely hearing any questions? Good question, Mike. Anything else? Good. So I am hearing some hesitancy around the Peters Park development. Get some more information on the park fees and we can give you more direction on that. Okay. D, Colin.
Good. We have no new employees for 2025. We're hoping to fill the position that was left vacant by Alicia leaving. She was the assistant zoning officer, commercial. We're also looking to implement some of the highest priority housing plan implementation strategies. Most of those are zoning ordinance changes, so we need at least $10,000 for all the legal and advertising fees associated with that. We're also working on a new comp plan. We're down to 2 consultants, which are going to present to us, I think, beginning of September. This year we budgeted $25,000. Next year we needed $50,000 for a total of $75,000. Alicia was also our notary, so we need to have somebody else trained and certified in that. We also transitioned to a new permit manager system this year called CSA New Permit Manager. We used MyGov before. About $70,000 startup costs. We already paid half of it, so next year we'll get the other half. And then the implementation of the online sewage disposal system ordinance.
That cost for the implementation of the online.
Yeah, at the moment, we're not completely sure what that will entail.
So what was the second year's cost on the data permit manager? There's 8,500 in there.
Yes, correct.
How's that number related to big number?
It's half of the big number.
Oh.
Yep. So we paid half this year.
Okay.
This is all that.
I thought I heard a different number in there, so I was trying to figure out where that was. So 17,000. We're paying the additional 8,500 to complete that process.
Yeah, 8,500 was paid this year, 8,500 next year. MyGov was changing their system and increasing their fees. We pay approximately $1,200 a month for MyGov. So it's a significant cost. CS datum and permit manager will be, once fully implemented, will be about $3,000 a year.
This is how much of it?
About 14,000 a year.
It's the kind of savings that the board.
We do expect to be able to run the old ordinance process through CS datum. So you don't have to buy any additional software.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, any questions for Colin? Good. Any direction needed by you? Please.
You're good with what's there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think it seems pretty, you know, direct and. I never heard him. Okay, let's keep moving.
Stormwater,
Yeah.
no new employees again. We're doing the video of the stormwater pipe inspections so that, $100,000 per year, starting in 2023. We'll have to make a payment for the revolving water fund, $746,000. Hopefully in 24, but possibly moving into 2025.
It's all dependent on whether PADP approves our pollution reduction plan amendment.
In reduction plan projects, we're unsure which one specifically at this time, but it'll range between $400,000 and $600,000 to implement those. And then repair and replacement of all the stormwater facilities that were identified during the video inspections. We do not have a number at this time.
So we'll be using the video inspections to make those improvements. From 2023 inspections, Public Works has been able to get on top of those changes, fixing repairs pretty quickly. There were some that were emergency repairs that were found, but the list is growing now. So Public Works is working on getting us a total number for those replacement and repairs. As we move through developments, especially older developments, we're going to find more need for repair.
Just as a reminder that the stormwater fund is Elsa's baby, so you don't need to make any decisions about that. This is primarily for your information.
Okay.
Keep going.
IT. If not, I can. Okay. IT has no new employees proposed, a new printer at the front desk at about $6,000. Video upgrades for the township campus, and that's about $25,000. It's my understanding the video equipment we have is no longer permitted to be utilized here because of its manufacture.
Which video equipment?
So around the complex.
The security cameras.
Yes,
No longer can be what?
utilized because
Because
of its manufacture.
Which is
China.
Yes.
is that far away?
So there was a camera, I think Charlie talked cameras on the salt shed. Maybe it was summer in that facility. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was the park. Was it? Yeah, same. So this 25 grand is just for the township.
This is just
campus.
for the
Okay.
township campus. And then we have our general repair and replacement or maintenance program.
Is it the whole system or just the cameras?
I believe it's the entire system.
I thought it was just the camera breaks.
So
There's some fixed and some pan tilt zooms and outside multiple locations in the building and apartment lots.
that's housed in police department.
Yes.
Now, can those not be used because there's a new law that says we can't use them? That's we can't use them at all, or
We cannot
we
use
can't
it.
buy them definitely.
cannot use them.
So federal or state law.
It's my understanding that with CGIS requirements, we can no longer use them
As of when?
sometime next year. I don't have that date.
All right. So who passed that one?
That would have been the president. Get more information.
So is that familiar with a law passed by an entity that told you to remove local government's infrastructure? That's a new, usually it's you can't buy any more of it going forward. I'm not familiar with any that I've read that are like, hey, you have it in the building. Especially with, these are hardwired cameras, they're not Wi-Fi cameras. They're not connected to a network so if so that's why I asked the question, if it's running through a switch and we have to replace the switch because there's a security concern, very different than the camera's not connected to anything. There is no ability to have backdoor.
Definitely did not say we needed to replace the switch.
We control its connection to the internet. That doesn't have an independent connection.
We'll definitely.
Get some more information on that one.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, recreation. So with the hiring of Lisa Cleveland, our recreation program has taken off, and we've gotten excellent feedback from residents about the offerings that she's been putting out there. So as she looks at budgeting for a summer playground and the recent MOU that you approved with the school district, and the school district also approved that same night. So definitely we'll need some staffing next summer to accommodate that summer playground, as well as some programming to bring in some individuals like an entomologist, a rock guide, a geologist, so that, she can offer more than just an arts and crafts kind of summer playground, but looking to hold that at the school campus. So that increases from 20,000 that's in programming this year to 40,000, and then having the staffing at 11,000. That would be part-time employees just for the summer.
No pension,
No.
healthcare benefits.
Yeah, the other thing that's not reflected here is that we expect there to be revenues as well from the recreation program. So different programs will have different amounts, but we expect there to be revenues. So we'll be flushing all that out in more detail.
Finance has no new employees and nothing else. Kevin's good to go. Under administration, we're going to have the ongoing costs of codification, so that's at 5,000 per year. This is the time when we should have a preliminary discussion about the libraries and LEMSA contributions. So the numbers that are on the consideration sheet here are those numbers that we used this year in the 24 budget. And the libraries was based off of the $2.50 per capita. And the 56,000 for LEMSA was based off their request last year.
Just roughly $3 change per person.
Discussion in terms of, do we see a major change there? Or is
Do
that-
you see a major change?
Well,
in
to
either
the LEMSA, they're always going to come and really say, we're not getting enough, I mean, it's a shame. It really is. I mean, that there are reimbursements and so forth there, that hasn't been corrected. I haven't seen any initiatives by any government officials to address that, so.
They're walking towards the cliff. At some point, we're gonna run out of room. Whether it's LEMSA or XYZ in Schuylkill County. So the whole system's gonna collapse. Kicking the can down the road by the state government, federal and everything is not gonna resolve that.
Ralph, do you know if they've come up with their budgeting process of when they're gonna have their number of what they're requesting?
Yeah, Bob's planning to be at I think, your second meeting in October. At this point, my understanding is I don't expect he's going to be asking for any more from East Lampeter. We have been giving them what they've asked for. As a member of their board and seeing their finances on a regular basis, LEMS is in good shape. They're financially sound right now. There is concern about the future and how that's going to come together, but there's no panic at this point.
It's about the LEMSA versus Lancaster County as a whole, those situations.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a
That's what I
doubt.
wanted to-
Yeah.
So I wasn't referring just to LEMSA, but I mean, the whole ambulance transport service nationwide is, well, Pennsylvania wide is.
Well, I think it's national. I would agree with you. I think it's broader than that, but again, I probably have some bias being on their board, but
Yeah.
we're fortunate to be served by LEMSA, in my opinion.
Comments on the library, $2.50 per resident.
Do we have a time where they're planning to come?
Yes, they're planning to come. Actually, I think it's your September meeting.
Well, they certainly seem like they've made a significant number of changes in policy. I'd like to hear what those are from them, if there's any questions about it. But, the controversies of last year, it appears, caused, certainly some changes in policies.
Our policy is, essentially at this meeting, we usually talk about how much, and then our ongoing policy has been to split it pro rata across the top four. Is that correct? Yeah. So my assumption is that Lancaster Public Library will likely be in the number one spot as it has been in the past.
Well, it hasn't been.
Oh, that's right. It hasn't. Right. It's been. Is that right?
But they opened.
So the real question is whether their circulation has gone up. That's what I'm very interested to see.
Yeah.
Because right now, the majority of our residents do not use the library, the Lancaster Public Library.
Yes, Manheim.
Townships one.
That's from-
Did ask Ethan's question when they contacted me about coming about, can they tell us how much they get in terms of contributions from East Lampeter businesses? And he promised that he would have that information.
Okay. I mean, many moons ago when they started coming, was when I was used to be on the county system board, and I was part of their subcommittee that we did a new strategic plan, and then I was on the finance side looking at the funding formula. And the recommendation when I left was you need to update the formula. They've not updated it since 2010. Well, they haven't updated since we took over with the new board, but hasn't been updated forever. Basically, I know us, and at the time, West Lampeter also did a similar simple formula that split it up based off of usage. I'm not sure if West Lampeter still does that. That was another question I'd asked them last time was, do any of your other contributing municipalities contribute to just one library or they do several? So in the past, they've said $5 is their goal in funding for every resident. And I said, I think our goal should be to get to half of that and then focus on our business community to fundraise the remaining half. So thank you. I'd love to see that number, what they get. I think their way their fundraising software works, I don't know if they can get that information without building a spreadsheet.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the administration section from the board?
The only other one still in there, be whether we have $10,000 in our budget this year for the homelessness. We want to continue that or increase it. So if we were to create a grant, give it out this year, someone could spend it all next year. And then ideally we have at least enough to maybe do it one more time and then see how that impact goes and then either start raising more amounts or have some formula where we start to calculate that.
Yeah, I'd be up for putting another 10,000 into the budget.
That might be worth, I don't know if that's something we could easily get from. So the other area, the other municipalities that have hubs in them, like Elizabethtown, Ephrata, Columbia. So there's Echoes in E-Town. So what Council of ICs and other ones are trying to do is have sort of a general hub that helps connect a bunch of services. Do those communities contribute to any similar hubs in those areas? I don't know the answer to that. Might be helpful to give us feedback.
Capital reserve,
Under capital reserve, we have the Lincoln Highway Phase 3 project moving forward. So that is from the Dutch Wonderland Tanger intersection through to the Bowman intersection at this point. A large number there, $2,450,000, and that's engineering and construction. So looking for have multimodal funds through CFA and PennDOT to pay for that. And then we've also moved the RACP funds that were originally slated for a trail through Rockvale into that project, the Phase 3 project. Hutch talked about the SGT funds. That's 2019 money. That is for the trail through Flory Park from Strasburg Pike to Oakview Road. And that will meet up with the Western Gateway project that PennDOT is doing. And then
We're asking for more construction dollars for that trail project, so
what are we asking for?
about $500,000 additional.
When will we hear from the tip?
TTAC meets on Monday,
Yeah.
and we hope that they'll make a recommendation to the MPO to provide that funding. I think the MPO meets the end of September.
So we should have a good idea by the time we have to.
Yes.
And then the Lancaster Heritage Pathway, we have 3 studies going on. However, PennDOT required us to combine 2 of the studies. And so working through the ECMS program has been nothing but difficult. So that is just getting underway. That piece is to look at connection to the west along Walnut Street Extension and into the city, and then down Pitney Road into the waterworks. The other study has begun, and the consultant is working on that, and that is to look at the direction that the trail and traffic should be along Oak Grove Road and Willow Lane, and then the extension to the township line to Geist Road along the right of way. And then we have the Bridgeport implementation, which is from Tennyson Avenue, well, just to the east of Tennyson Avenue through to Strasburg Pike. Now, that will go on the tip for construction funds, but the township is required to do the design. So that's about $600,000.
That won't be on the tip until 28. So we've got a few years to get the design and permitting done.
Thanks. Are there any questions about the capital reserve? And that capital reserve budget, fund balance.
I don't know if fund balance is shown anywhere.
Yeah, no, it just has, it has last, 2023, we had around 2 million.
I think if I'm thinking the way you're thinking, the board may need to look at additional borrowing.
I was gonna say, either prioritization, borrowing, or just the project. Yes.
There's some more analysis.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It'd probably be helpful to just get us another summary of where we're at with our current debt load and debt service.
Sure.
Yeah, we reorganized a chunk of that debt a few years ago, but
Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, the typical chart that we get from the bond, advisors that, shows the interest rate, the years, that chart would be awesome. See it out for me in the next, 10, 15 years. Yeah, it'd be great. And actually, it would be awesome just to get the current rate bonds are. Whether we not, we never know until we go out to market, but just the range would be good to know. So, IPDA, that's.
So we have one here, is the bid, and that means, for this line, if we move it forward, it's after the timeline for the project is moving, which would be by the end of the year. The gateway signage is still out there to be constructed, so with the western gateway project, that would be constructed at that time with the PennDOT project, and then the eastern side, we're working to contact the landowner. The wayfinding signage goes along with that, and we have still not worked through all of the issues with PennDOT on the wayfinding signage. So that's been quite a hurdle to get through. The brand implementation, so the brand is done, Lincoln Highway, Lancaster, not Lincoln Highway East. So that's finished. We just need to actually implement that onto the wayfinding signage, onto the gateway signage, and then onto anything else that's potentially out of the bid.
Roughly 600,000 projected end of this year. And then TIP fund. Yeah. Point early, Rockville project, that would come to fruition, which we hope it does.
And that won't add anything to the TIF fund until their assessed value.
Right. Year could be, it could be 10 years from now, but that's if I'm like a leader. Yeah.
That's another possible source to look at for any of these streetscape improvement projects, even the capital projects that were listed there, that we could go to the ICDA and say we need some of that much for those projects too.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, so the ICDA, so the TIF fund. So anything between Strasburg Pike and 896. Like what ish? Yeah, plus the next two portions. Yeah. So like what are the limitations on those funds?
I think it's basically anything that was listed in the streetscape plan.
Okay. Yeah.
Would be eligible.
Yeah. Okay. So good to know. Good.
Any direction that you need for? Was that?
Board members have, other programs that he wants to look at or develop possible.
Well, I think last year we just spoke of the departments watching over their government, over their departments and just, looking for cost savings. That's the real issue. And we just heard it from Kevin of what we're facing for the next 3 years to keep where we need to be with, our 18%, backup. So I don't see a lot of fluff. I mean, obviously Gibbons Park, there's $600,000. Probably live the closest to it. I love it. I already stopped down to look, but we have to be careful if we can't afford things right now. We have to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, the big picture, and this is every local government in the country is looking at the 2030 peak of our sort of big expenses that are going to be related to our aging boomer population, we call it that, which is people retiring, people leaning on their pensions and healthcare. And that's also going to be, so I call it, goal is get past 2030. And hopefully and at that point, the economic, the expansion of wage earners as a ratio of people who are getting a lot of expenses paid by the government starts to reset and go the other direction. So it's not an immediate downhill, but we start going downhill on the financial side post 2030, roughly. That's what I think we're seeing here in our expense projections. You're also going to see big transfer in real estate in a similar period for similar reasons. So I think managing the next 5 years is going to be a very doable thing, but it's going to take some effort. And we can both look at how we can strain some costs, how we can raise revenue, and how we can smooth some of those with borrowing or phasing in projects. Is basically, can we smooth some of that mountain ahead down a little bit? So we don't have a whole lot of levers, but we do have some that we can look at. Our fund balances are pretty strong across there. So where can we utilize some of those funds that are currently parked in fund balances? Either do some bigger projects or look at a bond issue, depending on where our debt service is at. Expect rates to start to come in.
Ted, any thoughts?
No, it was an eye-opening experience for my first time, so definitely learned a lot.
This is the summary, right? The full stack of all the individual details. It's a lot more fun. And we start asking about page 36, line 2.
One thing that might be a valuable investment or something to investigate further would be a better system for our meetings. I try to watch it come back, and it's very difficult to hear people in the audience, on the Zoom side.
We have been looking at that and sort of trying to recalibrate. So we're hoping it's better than it was a few meetings ago. Did look at that.
Just a suggestion on that. Sound deadening and probably help more than boosting your microphone. So it's the echo so the microphones are actually picking up twice is what I'm hearing, even if it's a couple panels around the edges, because we've got basically rock walls. Might be a more effective way of getting better sound than upgrading your.
Absorbing in there. That's probably an echo chamber up in that area and overhead.
Any other thoughts, Roger? I appreciate the time you guys took, presentations, good, great summaries, and look forward to further conversations or the afternoons you guys have. And feel free to tap us in future public meetings if we need more, if you guys need more direction. With that said, I'll look for an adjournment. Motion to adjourn. So moved by Ethan, second by Mike. Any public comment on the adjournment? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.